Well, pretty much every DC comic fell short for me this week, but The Flash definitely made me raise an eyebrow several times. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome to Essential Issues Weekly, where I talk about DC Comics 1 week after their release on the Ultra tier of the DC Universe Infinite subscription service. In each installment, I pick an assortment of comics to talk about as a DC fan and also explore what, if anything, they have to say about the essential issues of real life. Now, warning, full spoilers for everything that I talk about. This is your first and only warning that many spoilers lie ahead. Right now, we're taking a look at comics originally released to the Ultra tier on February 20th, 2024, originally published January 23rd, 2024. First from that list is Green Arrow number 8. Now, I was checking in with this title because I really lost interest in lots of the cosmic, galaxy-hopping, time-traveling stuff that Green Arrow was doing in the arc before this. That's really not what I would go to Green Arrow for, and this one seemed to be finally back down to Earth. And yet, it really felt like kind of a cheap trick to the reader to, like, kill Ollie and eventually kill his son in the same issue. I mean, it was pretty obvious, like, okay, this is going to be reversed somehow. Is this going to be another time travel thing or something like that? And it ended up being, something else that still felt just kind of cheap. And I don't know, I guess I'm wanting something that is doing less weird stuff story-wise and is more just leaning into the characters. When I think of a character like Green Arrow, a street-level superhero, I tend to want, if not expect always, a more character-oriented, close-to-the-heart, ground-level, and, gritty type of storytelling. And I'm still not seeing that, even though we're done with the cosmic time-traveling story. So I don't think I'm going to be checking in with Green Arrow again until we get a change in the creative team. Next up is Power Girl number 5, which also took a turn that was just not for me. Most of the story is told from the perspective of Streaky the Super Cat. And so all of the human characters are just speaking gibberish because, of course, Streaky as a cat wouldn't understand that. They're still entering into some kind of anthropomorphizing of Streaky and giving her more of a, or is it a he? I don't know what this cat is, but giving it more like human characteristics and potential human capabilities, arguably. I don't know. I don't want to analyze it too much, but I'm just not into this. We're only like 5 issues into this kind of new rebooted take on Supergirl, and so for the 5th issue to go in this really like rabbit trail direction just does not seem well timed for me, and it's testing my interest in Power Girl at this point. Now, perhaps, I just have to speculate why they would make this choice. Maybe because I have to make 2 assumptions. 1, that they're going significantly for a female readership, and 2, that statistically, female readers are more likely to want cat stories or to like cats or something. I don't know if either of those things are true. I have no studies. I have no information on any of that. But I'm trying to make sense of why, at this point in the series, this seems like something that you would do 30 issues in when you have an established audience and you're just going off the beaten path. But for issue 5 to be taken up with this is really unusual, really strange, and kind of off-putting to me. At the end, they do tease that, okay, we're going to have some kind of a team-up of all the Supergirls in the DC universe, and I wish they would have just jumped straight to that. So I am going to check in and see what happens in issue 6, but Power Girl number 5 was a real disappointment for me. The comic that I easily most enjoyed as a fan this week was The Penguin number 6. In previous issues in this arc, Penguin has kind of been gathering his forces and getting like some key, to call them henchmen is to sell them short. I mean, he is getting like it's almost like the gathering of a team for a heist. He's getting these very specialized people to kind of support his aim to come back and retake Gotham as the kingpin, of the kingpin of crime, I guess, in the DC universe, So he's ready to make his big comeback now, comes back to Gotham. We saw that at the end of issue 5, but instead of taking us to his entrance into Gotham, issue 6 surprisingly jumps back in time and retraces some of Penguin's origin story, specifically covering like maybe the first year that Batman would have been fighting crime before Joker became the Joker, which there's even a reference to in this issue. Apparently, now I don't know if this is brand new to this story arc or if this has been established at all before, but it was new to me. Apparently, the Oswald Cobblepot, who became the Penguin, was positioned in the Falcone crime organization to be in a place to give information to Batman and help Batman take down the Falcone crime family. And so he was being mistreated and overlooked. I mean, I think Penguin, just as an aside, is great for that, because I think many of us geeks feel underappreciated, overlooked, misunderstood, and yet the Penguin, in being that kind of character, shows us the kind of dark path we can go down if we allow ourselves to. But anyway, so the Batman kind of allies with the Penguin, and by the end of this story, the Iceberg Lounge, originally we find here owned by the Falcones, was basically handed over to Oswald with the understanding that he would allow criminals to meet there in the future, and then he would get information from them, hear them talking, and feed that information to Batman in some kind of a partnership. And so it looks like, wow, this is really interesting that this is where things started, and yet there's a great turn at the end of the episode where Oswald, who we have reason to think when we're looking at this origin story, was kind of a decent guy, a misunderstood guy, someone that you would feel sympathy for, but no, he, even this early on, was clearly pretty evil at his core based on what he does at the very end of this issue. That's the one thing I won't spoil, just on the off chance you haven't read this. But this series continues to surprisingly engage me with the Penguin and invest in the Penguin, take him seriously as a real threat. I'm just really enjoying Tom King's run, and I look forward to seeing what will come in issue 7. The Flash number 5 continues this recent run of the series that I have not been enjoying the artistic direction of, both in terms of the art and in terms of the storytelling. But there were some things in here that really kind of got my attention, raised my eyebrow a few times. Let's take a look at them. First off, the story centers on Wally's son, Jay, who is sitting outside the principal's office. He's getting in trouble at school, but he's feeling very misunderstood. He's going through all this inner turmoil related to his developing powers, and he just feels extremely, speaking of, misunderstood and not appreciated, and wishes that he could tell people what he was experiencing, because he believes that they really would be kinder to him if they knew. He's also dealing with this really internal anger that I think a lot of us, especially boys at the age that Jay's at, which is presumably maybe like late elementary or early junior high, I can't remember. But I think a lot of it, as we're heading into puberty as boys, the testosterone really starts kicking in, and that kind of aggression and angst comes together into a cocktail that can make us explode and to make bad choices in school and have lots of internal turmoil. And so I think that they're representing that really pretty well here in a way that's almost going to be universal, at least among a lot of male readers. Well, among Jay's powers that he's discovering is this sort of teleporting ability that takes him near his dad, Wally, whenever he feels really intense emotion or anxiety or fear or something like that. And so he jumps to Wally, but without Wally knowing. He just kind of warps nearby. And, meanwhile, Wally is kind of engaging in the plot stuff that's really been causing me to disconnect with The Flash, which is very abstract, technobabble, sci-fi type stuff that is not really what I come to The Flash for. I come to The Flash for high-speed action and creative uses of the Speed Force. Granted, they are here leaning into a very creative exploration and use of the Speed Force, but they're leaning into it so much that the super speed action and excitement and stuff is virtually absent in what The Flash has been up to in this comic for a few issues. There are also several strange kind of about-face turns in the story that make it a little hard to follow, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to understand more than I do, or if it's, specifically leaving out exposition, as an artistic choice, which certainly is done many times and can be very effective, but I'm still feeling like I'm just kind of lost. And in particular, sometimes when characters will behave in a way that seems unmotivated by what just happened right before the moment that they made a choice, or a scene turns in a very different direction. I'm just like, this does not feel natural that the scene suddenly turned in this direction. So there's just numerous elements of the writing that I'm just not connecting with. But in the middle of kind of one of these weird scenes, we do see kind of them teasing the theme of this comic and maybe where Jay's story is going. Grodd says, "Nothing I do, not the wounds I suffer, nor bargains I strike, none of it is too great a price to build a world of choices for my children." He says this in Wally's presence. He says, such should be the priority of any responsible father. And for a moment, we almost see as if Wally can see his son just before his son kind of like teleports out of the scene. And so they seem to be setting up this idea that Wally ought to be, as a responsible father, providing choices for his children, in this case for Jay. So what is that choice in question? Well, we'll get to that, but first I want to just take note of one trope in comics that I think is worth being aware of. A mysterious mentor to Jay, who's trying to help him understand his powers, says to him as he's trying to coach him in learning how to use them, say, "Don't think, instinct, remember, just do it." And I find that that is so, like, almost universally true of so many stories in fiction about people learning how to use powers, learning how to use magic, all these kinds of. It's about feeling, it's about instinct, it is not about thinking, it's not about considering. And I think it would be so interesting and valuable if at some point there was a character whose superpowers really only came out when they were thinking most reasonably, when they were not operating on instinct. I think there's something appealing to us about the idea of being most effective, most capable, most in tune with who we are meant to be when we are operating on instinct. Of course, wouldn't that be wonderful? Wouldn't that be convenient? And so I think at some point, as is the case with so many different elements of stories, that trope is incorporated in because it appeals to us on a psychological level. And yet it's still worth being aware of this idea so that we don't ever fall into kind of like the lazy mentality of, listen, sometimes you just got to go with your gut. Well, is this the time to go with your gut? So anyway, just a little something there that one of many things that made me raise an eyebrow. Another little moment here that's relevant to something we'll look at in a few seconds here, that's just worth taking note of, is when Wally says to Jay, No, it's fine. It's fine that you're here. He says, look, I love it when you get involved. It's the family business. We can do this stuff together. I think that this idea of Wally's, that his children are part of the family business, it worked better for me somehow under Jeremy Adams writing this book. Maybe because there was just a lighter, more optimistic tone. But as this writer has taken things to a more serious level, I find myself asking, why are you okay with him being in the quote-unquote family business? I mean, considering how many times you have put your life in jeopardy. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should talk to like a police officer whose son is becoming or considering becoming a police officer. But at the same time, do you take your son as a police officer out on duty with you when you are, hunting down criminals or whatever, like getting into really dangerous situations? No, you don't. Of course, can these kids, because they have superpowers, arguably protect themselves more? Well, maybe. I don't know. There's just kind of like some complexities about the idea of Wally taking his kids around with him in these dangerous situations that have, for some reason, only worked for me under Jeremy Adams way back in the day when his kids were first introduced and Wally was bringing them around with his adventures. I didn't like it then either. So I don't know. It's a hard thing to make work in my mind, and I'm just reminded here of that fact in this little moment. Like I said, though, I do like what they're exploring with Jay's character in this stage of his life. He has this heart-to-heart with his dad where he says, I get sad and I'm kind of awkward in my own skin. I have all these, big feelings, and I know I screw up a ton, and I keep getting sent to the principal, and I mean, I can't even run fast, so blah, blah, blah. So he's going into all this stuff, and some of these like phrases, as a dad, they're stuff that I can relate to. One of my boys is probably a little bit more awkward than the other. And one of my boys we would definitely describe as having big feelings, and is working through processing those feelings in a healthy way and learning to kind of control himself and give vent to his emotions at the right times, places, situations in the right ways and stuff. So, just that phrase, big feelings, of like, oh man, yeah, we've used that in our house. So I appreciate just kind of like them tapping into that very real nature of growing up in this issue. But another eyebrow-raising moment here is when Wally respectfully, or respectably, I should maybe say, in an effort to comfort and assure his son, says, "You're my son. I will never not be proud of you." And I think my issue is with the language there, because my sons can certainly do things that, in the context of the choice they have made, would lead me to not be proud of them in that moment. Of course, I would still be proud of them for other reasons, or maybe proud isn't even the right word. I'm not even sure that we should use that word in the way that we sometimes use it. I think we want to convey that our children have value, and we want people to see value in us and be very happy and grateful to be associated with us. The word proud, the word pride, I don't know, that's a little bit of a tricky one. So I'm not sure that I am on board with the use of the word proud here. Yes, absolutely, I'm nitpicking here. But I mean, that's part of what I want to do with this Essential Issues series, is just kind of pick some nits and analyze and dig in a little bit. I don't think that this is like bad writing. I'm not wagging a finger at the writer or anything like that, but this is just language that we all very commonly use. But I'm just wondering, is this the best language when we want to have this kind of a moment with either a child or someone else that we want to assure them of their worth to us? Is this the best language to use? I'm not sure that it is. So anyway, Jay has this kind of like thing that he's been harboring that he wants to tell his dad. They finally seem like they're about to get a moment. He says, "Dad, I've decided that and he gets cut off, some kind of excitement happens or whatever, and of course we're left hanging wondering, okay, what is the secret? Of course, in today's climate, I was wondering, okay, is he going to tell his dad that he's gay, or what is this that's happening here? But when he finally does get the chance to tell him later on, he says, "I've decided I don't want to be a superhero, Dad." And as Jay describes Wally's reaction, he says that he was quiet a while afterward. Then he made out like it was no big deal, smile, hug, and he says, "Whatever makes you happy, son." And then he was gone. Now, it's tricky to sort through kind of how I feel about this. Thematically, I appreciate what they're going for here. First of all, they're taking something very broad and almost universal, and that is that a child wants to do something with their life that is either different than their parent would expect or different than what their parent would want. And I think more typically today, they would have zeroed in and it would have been like a coming out as gay type story or transgender type story, something like that. So I appreciate them zooming out and going to something more universal that allows the reader to then apply a number of different situations that involve a child saying something to their parent that their parent is maybe not going to be excited to hear. And specifically something about what that child feels about who they are and what they want to do with their life. And I think we're meant to feel good about Wally's response. I think I do. So he's saying, "Whatever makes you happy, son," or at least maybe the heart behind it. I don't think as a blanket statement, we want to affirm people's choices in life by saying, "Whatever makes you happy, son," as though a person's individual happiness is the most relevant factor in deciding what they ought to do with their lives. First off, there are plenty of times where we don't know what will make us happy. We think something will make us happy, but it actually doesn't. And second, sometimes the more noble choice in life is not going to make us happy. We are told to pick up our cross and follow after Jesus as Christians specifically. And Jesus, it said, for the joy set before him, the joy ahead of him that he looked ahead to, endured the cross and the shame. And so it may be that what is most noble, what is best, what is right for us to do in life is not that which is going to make us happy in the present. I think once we've sorted through that which is right, that which is virtuous, that which is moral, that which is valuable and should be a priority in life, then beyond that, sure, I think that God wants us to experience some happiness in this life when we are able, when it lines up with the plans that He has for us. I mean, we're doing a study in the Proverbs right now, and it's clear from the Proverbs that God wants us to avoid unnecessary unhappiness, unnecessary pain and difficulty in life. But sometimes pain is necessary, difficulty is necessary. And so whatever makes you happy, son, I think is really not the highest bar, the ultimate factor, the key to decision making in life. Now, apart from the theme and just kind of like drilling into the world of the story here, again, I'm not sure why Wally should be disappointed at all. If I were a parent who was doing stuff that every day put my life in danger, and that was my job, and my child said to me, Dad, I don't want to do what you do, I would say, kiddo, you don't have to. I would much rather you be safe. We don't really get Wally's side of the story. We only get a sense of what Wally said and how he reacted based on Jay's perspective, and Jay telling this information secondhand, passing it along to someone else. We don't actually see that scene. We're certainly not in Wally's thought bubbles and internal narration and stuff. And so we can't really know if Jay's representation of Wally and his reactions are actually accurate. In any case, I think I would hope that Wally's true internal reaction is maybe significantly of relief that his child is not going to be choosing the dangerous life that he has chosen. That said, I mean, if I were a missionary doing missions work in a very dangerous place, and, you know, my son I thought was a really good fit for that, but was rejecting what God seems to have built him for in favor of something else, I can see that being hard as well. I don't know, it's hard. I mean, when we're talking about people with superpowers, it's hard to figure out what the parallels are and how I should feel about this kind of situation. Anyway, those are my thoughts for now, such as they are. Which of these, oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Okay, so I'm wearing the black ring this week, which you might have noticed already if you're watching the video version. Yeah, most of the comics, as a fan, just kind of fell flat for me. They're not really what I want. Penguin, of course, I really enjoyed. But I mean, just in general this week, the books that I read, like, oh man, this isn't really what I was in for. So I'm feeling kind of meh, feeling a little dead inside. That's the closest like shoehorn connection I can make to the black ring. So hopefully I'll be wearing a different color next week. But yeah, which of these books has your attention and why? Or is there some other book that came to the Ultra Tier last week that I didn't talk about here that you have some reactions to? I'd love to get your thoughts and comments. Oops, man, bumping around my microphone here. Below, all that jazz, christiangeekcentral.com for tons more content. I'm getting out of here. Bye.